Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session looking at Look About You, a pleasant comedy as it was lately played by the Right Honourable the Lord High Admiral, his servants. Yes, we're closing last gasp of the 1590s with this one, and yes, we're looking forward to some more Robin Hood action. Yes. We are once again in the land of merriness, possibly, we shall see. Certainly a lot of potential confusion is in place as well with disguisings and things, and we have a maximalist approach to the scene labelling for this particular version that we're working from. There aren't as many scenes actually in the play as this script says there are, but it's quite useful for reading, even though it should actually be considerably fewer, but we're just going to go with what we've got and label out the different units of action as we go. Reading today, Robert Hood is
Alan, based in Suffolk.
Reading Fauconbridge and a servant is...
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Amisu and I'm an author based in Romford.
Reading Young King and Lady Fauconbridge is...
Lois Potter, a big Robin Hood fan based in London.
Reading Old King and Redcap is...
Aliki, Chapple, based in Lancaster in the north of England.
Reading John and Block is...
Rachael, actor on the East Coast.
Reading Richard today is...
Briony, Sparrow, actor in Lincolnshire. I've been called a Richard before.
Reading Gloucester and Constable is...
Francis Cox, actor and voice artist, living in Amsterdam.
Reading Chester and Lancaster, officer, keeper and porter is...
Hi everyone, I'm Cheynne. I'm a grad student from Cal State University in Long Beach. Good morning.
Reading Skink and Leicester is...
Hello, I'm Lynn Freitas. I'm a college composition teacher coming to you from the Northwestern United States.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading stage directions and generally keeping us moving forward. So, without further ado, let's dive into Scene 1, where we have the entrance of Robert Hood, a young nobleman, a servant with him with riding wands in their hands as if they had been new lighted.
Go, walk the horses, wait me on the hill. This is the hermit's cell. Go out of sight. My business with him must not be revealed to any mortal creature but himself.
I'll wait your honour in the cross highway.
And exit servant.
Do so. Hermit, devout and reverend, if drowsy age keep not thy stiffened joints on thy unrestful bed, or if the hours of holy orisons detain thee not, come forth.
Enter Skink, lichen hermit.
Good morrow, son, good morrow, and God bless thee, Huntington. A brighter gleam of true nobility shines not in any youth more than in thee. Thou shalt be rich in honor, full of speed. Thou shalt win foes by fear and friends by meed.
Father, I come not now to know my fate. Important business urgeth princely Richard in these terms to salute thy reverend age.
And he delivers letters.
Read and be brief. I know some cause of trust made him employ me for his messenger.
A cause of trust indeed, true honored youth. Princes had need in matters of import to make nice choices. Fair Earl, if I not err, thou art the prince's ward?
Father, I am. His ward, his chamberlain and bedfellow.
Fair fall the honorable Robert Hood. Wend to Prince Richard. Say, though I am loth to use my skill in conjuration, yet Skink, that poisoned red-cheeked Rosamond, shall make appearance at the Parliament. He shall be there by noon, assure his grace.
Good morrow, father. See you fail him not. For though the villain did a horrible deed, yet hath the young King Richard and Earl John sworn to defend him from his greatest foes.
God's benison be with thee, noble Earl.
Adieu, good father. Hello there, my horse.
Exit Robert.
Up, spur the kicking jade, while I make speed to conjure Skink out of his hermit's weed. Lie there, religion, keep thy master grave, and on their fair trust of the prince's word, to court again Skink. But before I go, let mischief take advice of villainy. Why to the hermit's letters should be sent to post Skink to the court incontinent? Is there no trick in this? Let me see. Or do they know already? I am he. If they do so, faith, westward then with Skink. But what an ass am I to be thus fond? Here lies the hermit, whom I dying found some 2 months since, when I was hourly charged with Hugh the crier and with constables. I saw him in the ready way to heaven. I helped him forward. 'Twas a holy deed. And there he lies some 6 foot in the ground, since I keep me in his weeds. Oh, what a world of fools I have filled my cells. For fortunes, runaways, stolen good, lost cattle, among the numbers, all the faction that take the young king's part against the old. Come to myself to hearken for myself. So did the adverse party make inquire, but either fall full contrary desire. The old king's part would kill me, being stained. The young king's keeps me from their violence. So then thou hadst not fear. Go boldly on, brave Hal, Prince Dick, and my spruce Hotspur John. Here's their safe conduct. Oh, but for Rosamond, a fig for Rosamond. To this hope I'll lean. At a queen's bidding, I did kill a queen.
Exit Skink. Okay, this opening is throwing interesting curves at you, because it's like, so we're introduced to young Robert, and he's delivering letters for his patron Richard, one of the king's sons. There's lots of king's sons bobbing about. To this hermit who's talking about Skink and things, and then disrobes and says, "I'm Skink, and here's where I killed the hermit that used to live here." I mean, he was dying anyway. It was a mercy killing, honest. Yeah. And just said, "Yeah, I've been using this gig to sort of set myself up. This is some good stuff." I mean, it's a way to open a narrative, isn't it, Lynn?
Yeah, I mean, disguising, of course, is extremely common. It's like 6 spaces on the early modern bingo card, right? I mean, but typically we see the person put on the disguise or talk about, I'm going to disguise myself. We usually, as the audience, know about that before it happens, rather than having it explained to us after we've already seen the disguised character interact with another character. And I think there's a reason for that, because I found this very confusing.
Yeah, it seems to be that deliberate wrong-footingness and there's some of that creeping in. I've noticed this of late with some of the plays we've been reading, where they'll set you up with what seems to be the narrative, and then actually the rug is pulled quite quickly, and just going, see what we did there. Lois.
Yeah. First, there's one very important comma missing in the speech of Robert's beginning. "Good morrow, father, see you fail him not." That ought to be in the 3rd line. "Yet hath the young king, comma, Richard and Earl John, etc." Because there is no young King Richard. The young king is actually Henry. He's the son of, we're in the reign of Henry II, and his eldest son Henry had a brief period of being king. There was a weird idea that you could crown the heir before the father died, and Henry II did this, and it was such a disaster that no one ever did it again. But at any rate, that's what's happening here. We still have the old king and the young king, and that's kind of being explained here, or at least set up. And there's also the fact that Skink killed Rosamond, who some people probably know was Henry II's mistress, and And that's why, obviously, the old king hates Skink. But on the other hand, all the young princes are delighted that he did it. And that's why they've sworn to defend him. I mean, it's an enormous amount of exposition.
There's a lot of backstory being crammed in here. And some of, I mean, that whole thing, you've sort of forestalled me by it just going in immediately. Who was Rosamund? What the hell's going on there? Because I don't think for us it is clear at all. I mean, I don't know how much popular history of the time would have prefigured the audience for that bit of information. I don't know. I don't think we've stumbled across it. Aliki, were you waving? No, hand was just.
I was going to ask who Rosamund was, but that's been solved. Thank you, Lois.
Yeah. So there's lots of I mean, I don't always worry too much if there is information that isn't fully explained. It's a matter of maybe later in the text we'll explicate for an audience, especially if there's repetition of explication that we get. We'll see how well that lands. But otherwise, maybe a question of how much do we need to drip feed to the audience before this? Do we need a prologue? Not to explain necessarily who Skink is, but maybe explain more fully the which king's what and who's doing where and stuff. Do we need a chart?
Yeah.
Does the audience need a projected chart on the back wall before they come in? Lynn.
Yeah, because I don't know if this was just me, but when I hear the name Robert Hood, Robin Hood, I assume that Henry II is dead already, and that Richard is the real king. So I was thinking Richard's the older king and John is the young king. So I was confused. I didn't realize that we were a generation back from when many of the Robin Hood stories take place.
Yeah, we are in origin story territory here, and actually some of the stuff with Robert is very origin story-ish, isn't it? Saying, oh, so you are the, he's under the protection of Richard, and that sort of little backstory stuff is sort of just being drip fed in. That's sort of where he is. Lois.
Yeah, this is the prequel, really, to the Monday Robin Hood plays, which we've read. I think that's why they're sort of counting on people knowing him. And I think people would have known the Rosamund story because there are quite a few poems about it. I mean, Henry's supposed to have built this bower for her, which was sort of secret, a kind of labyrinth, but then somehow or other the queen found the way into it and poisoned her. I mean, that was the general sort of theory, or that was one of the versions of it. And that kind of romantic story tends to be known even when people don't know anything else about a rule.
Yeah, and that might be other material that we'll look at later, as we should, dig out stuff that feeds into this, so that I've made a note as future source sessions that we might go for. Anyway, we need to move on and get actually into the narrative in more detail as we go into scene 2. There is the obligatory sounding of trumpets. Enter with a herald on the one side, Henry II, crowned. After him, Lancaster, Chester, Sir Richard, Fauconbridge. On the other part, we have King Henry the Son, crowned. Herald after him. After him, Prince Richard John Leicester, being set. Enters fantastically Robert of Gloucester, in a girt gown, walks up and down.
Why doth not Gloucester take his honoured seat?
In faith, my liege, Gloucester is in a land where neither surety is to sit or stand. I only do appear as I am summoned, and will wait without till I am called.
I hear you, Gloucester.
Henry, I do hear you.
And why not king?
What's he that sits so near to you?
King too.
2 kings, ha-ha!
Gloucester, sit, we charge thee.
I will obey your charge. I will sit down, but in this house on no seat but the ground.
The seat's too good.
I know it, Brother John.
Thy brother.
Silence there.
Pass to the bills. Sir Richard Fauconbridge.
My lieges both, old Fauconbridge is proud of your right honoured charge. He that worst may will strain his old eyes. God send peace this day. A bill for the releasement of the Queen preferred. By Henry, the young king, Richard the Prince, John, Earl of Morton, Beaumin, Earl of Leicester, and the Commons.
Did you prefer this bill?
We did.
Ye did not well.
Why, this is good. Now shall we have the hell?
Chester and Lancaster.
Chester and Lancaster.
You wrong the king.
Our king we do not.
Do not you see me crowned?
But whilst he lives, we to none else are bound.
Is it not wrong, think you, when all the world's troubled with rumors of a captive queen imprisoned by her husband in a realm where her own son doth wear a diadem? Is like an head of people mutinous, still murmuring at the shame done her and us? Is it not more wrong when her mother's zeal, sounded through Europe, Africa, Asia, tells in the hollow of the news-thirsting ears, Queen Eleanor lives in a dungeon for pity and affection to her son? But when the true cause, Clifford's daughter's death, shall be exposed to stranger nations, what volumes will be writ, what libels spread, and in each line our state dishonored.
My lord speaks to the purpose. Marry, it may be so. Pray God it prove not so.
Hear me conclude, and therewithal conclude. It is an heinous, unheard of sin. Queen Eleanor, daughter to kingly France, King Henry's wife and Royal Henry's mother, is kept close prisoner for an act of justice committed on an odious concubine.
Thou wrongst her, Leicester.
Lechers ever praised the cause of their confusion. She was vile.
She was ill spoken of. It's true, too true.
Yonder sits one would do as much for you, old fool. Young Richard hath a gift, I know it, and on your wife my sister would bestow it. Here's a good world. Men hate adulterous sin, count it a gulf, and yet they needs will in.
What answer for the queen?
Your king replies, your words are full slanderous forgeries.
His Highness says not so.
His Highness tells you it is a shame for such wild youth to smother any impiety. With shoe to chastise loose adultery, says Rosamond was Henry's concubine. Had never king a concubine but he. His Rosamond began the fires in France. Made she the northern borders reek with flames? Unpeopled she the towns of Picardy. Left she the wives of England husbandless? Oh no, she sinned, I grant, so do we all. She fell herself, desiring none should fall. But Eleanor, who you so much commend, hath been the bellows of seditious fire, either through jealous rage or mad desire. Is it not a shame to think that she hath armed 4 sons' right hands against their father's head, and not the children of low-prized wench, but one whom God on earth hath defied? See where he sits with sorrow in his eyes, 3 of his sons and her tutored by her, smiles whilst he weeps, and with a proud disdain embrace blithe mirth, while his sad hearth complain.
Ah, laugh they? Nay, by the rood, that is not well. Now, fie, young princes, fie.
He doting fool.
Be silent, ass.
With all my heart, my lords, my humble leave, my lords. God's mother, ass and fool for speaking truth? 'Tis terrible, but fare ye well, my lords.
Nay, stay, good Fauconbridge, impute it rage that thus abuses your right reverend age. My brothers are too hot.
Too hot indeed. Fool, ass, for speaking truth, it's more than need.
Nay, good Sir Richard, at my kind entreat, for all the love I bear your noble house, let not your absence kindle further wrath. Each side's at council now. Sit down, I pray. I'll quit it with the kindest love I may.
Aye, to his wife.
Prince Richard, I'll sit down. But by the faith I owe fair England's crown, had you not been, I would have left the place. My service merits not so much disgrace.
Good Fauconbridge, I thank thee.
And they go to their places.
And you'll think of him if you can step into his bower at Stepney.
Prince Richard's very kind. I know his kindness. He loves me, but he loves my lady better. No more. I'll watch him. I'll prevent his game. Young lad, it's ill to halt before the lame.
And they break asunder. I'm just going to pause here because, it's always awkward during family gatherings as to what the seating arrangements are. I mean, this is not a family at peace with itself, is it? Even if you don't necessarily get all of the sort of ins and outs of it here, I think it's much clearer with staging. You do get a real sense of where the battle lines are lay, and we are getting more exposition on the stuff that Skink mentions in passing earlier. That sense of who Rosamond is in relation to what they're discussing. I'd probably add her name into the mention of her, because they just sort of mention this odious concubine and things like this, and they don't actually use the name. I think I'd probably throw the name in somewhere just to give the audience a crumb. But yeah, this is a, I just love the way that Leicester just goes, guys, does any of you think this is all a bit weird? This whole crowning, but the Queen's in this, and has anyone ever thought, is it just me? Just like this back and forth. Thoughts from the room as well. It's I'm going to keep talking until I see someone waving. Please, someone save me. I just, helpful lines for the audience, like 2 kings. Just to make sure there are 2 of them, in case you didn't look. One's got a bigger crown than the other, and probably a little smaller. That kind of thing. Rachael.
Didn't they have another brother, Geoffrey? Does he show up later? Why isn't he here?
Lois?
I think he may be dead by now. There were 2, John was the youngest of this lot, and there were all these people between him and the crown. It's really amazing that he ever became king. But both Geoffrey and Henry died, in fact, before Henry II. I can't remember in what order, though. I know you're thinking of Geoffrey because of The Lion in Winter. I mean, a lot of people compare this play to that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Complicated family. Family. A little simplification, even if he wasn't technically dead, it would be, you need to keep the number of brothers down. We got enough of them already. Okay. Anything else? Otherwise, we'll continue the scene, because I have paused mid-scene just to make sure everyone's up to speed. Lynn.
It is a little surprising that the way Richard is being characterized. At first I thought, he's defending Fauconbridge, who is speaking truth to power because Richard is the good guy, and we are concerned to valorize Richard, who will later be Richard the Lionheart. But then it turns out, oh no, he's just a predator, and he's after this guy's wife. That's why he's being friendly to him. So that's a little surprising that we have a fairly serious flaw in Richard's character when he's a folk hero.
Yes, and Fauconbridge's aside is quite useful, just to unpack some of the dialogue that you have earlier as well, just to make it really explicit, just what's going on here. Okay, more from this scene. So they break asunder, papers this while being offered and subscribed between either.
I'll not subscribe to this indignity. I'll not be called a king, but be a king. Allow me half the realm. Give me the north, the provinces that lie beyond the seas, Wales and the isles that compass in the main.
Nay, give him all, and he will scant be pleased.
Brother, you ask too much.
Too much. Too little. He shall have that and more. I swear he shall. I will have Nottingham and Salisbury, Stafford and Derby, and some other earldom, or by St. John, whose blessed name I bear, I'll make these places like a wilderness. It's not a plague, an horrible abuse. A king of England, should be father to 4 such proper youths as Hal and Dick, my brother Geoffrey, and my proper self, and yet not give his son such maintenance as he consumes among his minions.
More respective, John.
Respective, Richard. Are you turned pure? A changing weathercock. I say it's reason Henry should be king. Thou prince, I duke, as Geoffrey is a duke.
What shall your father do?
Live at his prayers, have a sufficient pension by the year, repent his sins, because his end is near.
A gracious son, a very gracious son.
Will this content you? I that I have sat still amazed to see my sons devoid of shame, to hear my subjects with rebellious tongues wound the kind bosom of their sovereign, can no more bear. But from a bleeding heart deliver all my love for all your hate. Will this content ye? Cruel Eleanor, your savage mother, my uncivil queen, that tigress, that hath drunk the purple blood of 3 times 20,000 valiant men, washing her red chaps in the weeping tears of widows, virgins, nurses, sucking babes, and lastly, sorted with her damned consorts, entered a labyrinth to murder love. Will this content you? She shall be released, that she may next seize me she most envies.
Our mother's liberty is some content.
What else would Henry have?
The kingdom.
Arose this bill. Draw near, let us confer.
Hal, be not answered but with sovereignty, for glorious is the sway of majesty.
What would content you, John?
5 earldoms, sir.
What you, son Richard?
Pardon, gracious father, and the furtherance for my vow of penance. For I have sworn to God and all his saints these arms erected in rebellious brawls against my father and my sovereign shall fight the battles of the Lord of hosts in wronged Judea and Palestina. That shall be Richard's penance for his pride, his blood a satisfaction for his sin, his patrimony, men, munition, and means to waft them into Syria.
Thou shalt have thy desire, heroic son, as soon as other homebred brawls are done.
Lancaster.
Oh. Why weeps old Fauconbridge?
I am almost blind to hear sons cruel and the fathers kind. Now well a year that ere I lived to see such patience and so much impiety.
Brother, content thee. This is but the first. Worse is a brewing, and yet not the worst.
You shall not stand to this.
And why, my lord?
The lands of Morton doth belong to John.
What's that to me? By act of parliament, if they be mine confirmed, he must be pleased.
Be pleased, King Puppet. Have I stood for thee, even in the mouth of death, opened my arms to circle in sedition's ugly shape, shook hands with duty, bade adieu to virtue, profaned all majesty in heaven and earth, writ in black characters on my white brow the name of rebel John against his father? For thee, thou automy of honor, thou worm of majesty, thou froth, thou bubble, and must I now be pleased in peace to stand, while statutes make thee owner of my land?
Good pastime, good. Now will the thieves fall out.
If I do, let me be never held royal King Henry's son. Pardon me, father. Put down this rebel that hath done thee wrong. Dick, come and leave his side. Sail him, lords. Let's have no parley but with bills and swords.
Peace, John. Lay down thy arms. Hear Henry speak. He minds thee no such wrong.
He were not best.
Why, hair-brained brother, can ye brook no jest? I do confirm you Earl of Nottingham.
And Morton too?
Aye, and Morton too.
Why so? Now once more I'll sit down by you.
Blow wind, the youngest of King Henry's stock, would fitly serve to make a weathercock.
Gay earth, challenge thine own, as Gloucester lies. Pity such muck is covered with the skies.
Quiet, my good my lords. 'Tis the king's command. You should be quiet, and 'tis very meet. It's most convenient. How say you, Prince Richard?
It is indeed.
Why, that is wisely said. You are a very kind, indifferent man. Marry a god, and by my halidom, were not I had a feeling in my head of some suspicion twixt my wife and him, I should affect him more than all the world.
Take heed, old Richard. Keep thee there, mad lad. My sister's fair, and beauty may turn bad.
And we pause there as we're about to have an additional entrance to the scene as it's going on. So, yeah, family conflicts getting more complicated as we're talking about who gets what. And, you know, as a general rule of thumb, never split up the kingdom. I mean, we've been here before. Many times. But it's interesting the way that all these various different vested interests are sort of negotiating for what they get and what markers they're laying down. Richard, of course, is setting himself up for crusades. So it's a really interesting dynamic. I really would enjoy sort of workshopping this scene just to get that sense of how all the different vested interests are trying to get what they want out of a situation. And that, you know, none of them are necessarily inherently good or bad people. Some of them are leaning more one way than others. It's just sort of there's this power politic struggle thing going on that's really interesting, and family relationships as well. You know, because even the sort of extended lords are to some degree related to everybody in some weird and twisted way, which I'm sure again you could have a lot of fun figuring out who's properly related to whom. Lois.
Yeah, Gloucester is actually an illegitimate son of the king. And that's why I think it's John gets annoyed when he says brother. You know, he wants to sort of disown him as a brother. And Gloucester is also the brother of Fauconbridge's wife, that comes out in the last lines, I think, of the scene.
So it's one of those problems because of those familiar relationships and your in-law relationships. The way you term people can get quite confusing, and it's nice that people get annoyed about people using that term when they feel that they shouldn't use that term, even though that term could be perfectly legitimate. I like that, even though it could be confusing. So that's something to watch out for. Lynn, were you wanting to dive in?
Well, I have a question for maybe Lois. So I gleaned that Gloucester was Fauconbridge's brother-in-law, right? Mm-hmm. But how are both Fauconbridge's wife and Gloucester illegitimate children, or are they like half brother and half sister? I mean, do you know?
I don't know whether his sister is also an illegitimate offspring of the king. I mean, I suspect that she's fictitious anyway, but yeah. Yes.
They have the same mother, but the sister is a product of a legitimate marriage, or I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it must be sort of deliberately tangled.
Yeah. Yes, I think that could well be. I mean, this is such a mess, and we do discover that Geoffrey is apparently still alive, but just not here. So that takes care of that question. Yeah.
Yeah, and the thing is also there is a question of, you know, what is actually plot important. I mean, sometimes you can have detail that is just there and it's detailed and it doesn't matter, and in the heat of action of a play, it sort of falls to the wayside and it's just sort of colouring to make the world more interesting rather than something you need to point up and highlight. So there's sort of questions as to at pace and in production whether those things are a problem or not. Aliki.
I just wanted to briefly appreciate the assonance of Gloucester's last line. Take heed, keep thee there, mad lad.
My sister's fair and beauty may turn bad. I do like the style of it as well. I mean, it's got a boldness to it, but there's also detailing that, you know, means it's not just cardboard cutout. I'm sort of just liking the style. I'm liking the style. Briony.
They seem to be a lot more plain speaking than a lot of the royal courtly situations that we've had going on before in plays. There was a few times when I was shocked at how bluntly stuff was said.
Mm.
Mm.
Yeah, and you know, sometimes you're looking at lines going, you know, 'cause some lines are marked as asides, but then there are other lines are going, is that an aside or is he just being rude? No, he's just being rude, right? So, yeah, and that's an interesting question about how public and private this scene is, because, of course, you know, with any sort of semi-royal scene with lots of people in a room like this, you're thinking, well, you know, maybe there's a certain amount of public politicking going on with what they're saying. But here, no, it does seem that even though there might be lots of servants and additional bodies around, it's very much a family gathering, isn't it? And they're saying what they think. Anyway, the scene shifts. It's labelled here as scene 3, but we could perhaps it's a continuation of scene 2, because we have entering Robin Hood, a paper in his hand, as well as an officer. Officer Cheynne.
Room there. Make room for young Huntington.
A gallant youth, a proper gentleman.
Richard, I have had wrong about his wardship.
You cannot write yourself.
He can and shall.
Not with your help, but honourable youth. Have you performed the business I enjoined?
And Skink is come. Here is his bill.
No matter for his bill. Let him come in.
Let him not enter. His infectious breath will poison the assembly.
Never doubt. There's more infectious breaths about your throne. Leicester is there. Your envious sons are there. If them you can endure, no poison fear.
Content thee, Gloucester.
I must be content when you that should mend all are patient.
Enter Skink.
Welcome, good Skink. Thou justly dost complain thou standst in dread of death for Rosamond, whom thou didst poison at our dread command and the appointment of our gracious mother. See here, my father's hand unto thy pardon.
I receive it graciously, wishing his soul sweet peace in heaven for so meritorious a work. For I fear me I have not his heart, though his hand.
Be sure thou hast not, murderous bloodsucker, to jealous envy executioner.
Besides, thou suest to have some maintenance. We have bethought us how we will reward thee. Thou shalt have Rowden lordship.
Shall he so? Will you reward your murderers with my lands?
Your lands? It is our gift, and he shall have it.
I'll give him seizure first with this and this.
And strikes him. Slap, slap.
Lay hold on Gloucester.
Hold that murderous Skink!
Villains, hand off. I am a prince, a peer, and I have borne disgrace while I can bear.
Knaves, leave your rudeness. How now, brother Gloucester? Nay, be appeased. Be patient, brother.
Shift for thyself, good Skink. There's gold. Away. Here will be parts.
Swoons, I'll make one and stay.
I prithee, begone, since thus it falleth out. Take water. Hence away. Thy life I doubt.
Well, farewell then. Get I once out of door, Skink will never put trust in warrants more.
Exit Skink.
Will Gloucester not be bridled?
Yes, my liege, and saddled too, and rid, and spurred, and reined. Such misery in your reign falls for friends. Let go my arms, you dunghills, let me speak.
Where's that knave Skink? I charge you, see him stayed.
The swift-heeled knave is fled. Body o' me, here's rule, here's work indeed.
Follow that Skink. Let privy search be made. Let no one pass except he be well known. Let posts be every way sent speedily for 10 miles compass round the city.
Take Gloucester to you, Lieutenant of the Tower. Keep him aside till we confer a while. Father, you must subscribe to his committing.
Why must he, Henry?
Marry, for this cause he hath broke peace and violated laws.
So have you all done, rebels as you be?
Good words, good brother. Hear me, gracious lords.
I prithee, Fauconbridge, be patient. Gloucester must of force answer this contempt.
I will not yield. He shall unto the tower. Warden of the fleet, take you the charge of Gloucester.
Why, be it so. Yet stay with him a while till we take order for the company that shall attend him and resort to him.
Warden of the fleet, I see I am your charge. Befriend me thus, lest by their command I be prevented of what I intend.
And there's the entrance of a keeper somewhere around here. And
Sean?
We're sorry about that.
you have lots of random pop-up parts. It's just cruel.
I'm sorry. Command me at any service in my power.
I pray you, call me some nimble-footed fellow to do a message for me to my sister.
Call in Redcap.
And someone exits for Redcap.
He weigheth with a tipstaff. He stammers, but he's swift and trusty, sir.
But before we get to the entrance of Redcap, the, shall we say, possibly more problematic element of this scene, I think we should just relish the scene that we've had reasonably well set up, I have to say, the sort of climax of this scene, which is just the old king and the spots of the they're just having a brawl now. It's just literally, get him. It's so, any pretense of kingly dignity that has been going on in this scene has just completely collapsed, and it's really rather glorious. I just love this. Skink, go shake his hand, and the king basically just says, I don't think the king likes me very much, and the king basically just says, you you and everything about you.
That might be an aside.
It might be, but it also, I'm not 100% certain it is. Because it's just, it could just look him straight in the eyes and say,
yeah.
There's lots of decisions here about what is going where all over the shop. It's fascinating. Other thoughts in the room? Lois.
Yeah, just one little note. When whoever it is tells Skink to take water, that doesn't mean drink some water. It means get in a boat and leave by the river.
Yeah, get
quickest
out of
getaway. Yeah.
Lynn.
It's just sort of gobsmacking to me that there's just like not even any pretense that we're not sweeping anything under the rug. Oh, Skink, we ordered you to poison my father's mistress, and our mother was in on it, but we're going to forgive you. Like, it's just, like, you're not even pretending that, oh, she died suddenly of natural causes. We're, oh, yeah, we had you poison her, but the kings decided to pardon you.
The young king is no operator, is he? I mean, he's really just clearly this whole crowning him as a terrible idea. From the off, we can just see where all the problems are going to lie. Aliki, then Alan.
So they're now signing a peace after the rebellion of the Sons. Is that what it is? And the Sons must have done quite well in order to be able to extract such vast concessions from their father.
Yeah, and we've had these reconciliation scenes before. I mean, quite recently we've had reconciliation scenes where there is no real meaningful reconciliation going on at all. So this is part of a long line of such kind of disasters. But when you don't really address the actual problems in the room. Alan, then Rachael.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, young Henry didn't at this time have a compliant head of the local police force.
Yeah, what's his power base, really? What's he got going for him? Apart from this title that he's now got. Rachael.
Oh, I was going to say, and with the concessions that Aliki said, I mean, there's a second person to pledge allegiance to now. I mean, John goes right for the younger brother to give him the earldoms and goes right around their father. So, I mean, it's that there's competition and they can just, I guess the combined forces of the three brothers together, plus that they can walk around him, I guess politically, maybe gives them that edge.
And and they've all also got their own agendas individually as well. I mean, that's the they've got their own aims and what they want to do. Other thoughts in the room? Anyone want to leap in? I say we're still in real terms. Midway through our second scene, we had a setup scene, which was almost deliberately confusing, but actually pretty much everything that was confusing in that first scene is reiterated and gone over in more detail here. So I'm comfortable actually with what the playwright's done here. They've made a bold choice of how to start the play, but actually I think it works. Disagreement is allowed. Elizabeth.
Yeah, I do agree with you, Rob. I think it does work. I don't think it's the first time that we've had a kingdom in disarray, being split up between different people. But I think it's the first time that we've had a lot of scenes where everybody stays on stage. And then someone else comes in, and it's like, oh, dun dun dun, Redcap's arrived, or someone's arrived, and that becomes a new scene. I really feel like that's quite an interesting dynamic. And I have to say, because I always say this, but we only have heard about female characters in this play. So far, we haven't had any at all. And I feel like it's very male-centric, and that's kind of driving the plot. But maybe that's typical of Robin Hood plays. We will have additional ladies appearing, but you're right. We haven't had any yet. But it's this big scene, isn't it? It's you're right. There's this massive scene. Everybody's pretty much on stage throughout. There's a few entrances and exits, but you've got to arrange them. You've got this whole question of who's sitting where at the beginning is not unimportant, because if you get that right, then your blocking's fine for the rest of the scene. But if you don't get that right, you could tie yourself up in knots in really, really dangerous ways. Lynn, and then back to Elizabeth.
It does look, in terms of everybody stays on stage and then other people come on to initiate what is in effect a new scene. It's the Troublesome Rain does this a little bit. The first scene is about the contested monarchy, about is Geoffrey's son Henry really the rightful king, and then there's the bastard son Fauconbridge again, different Fauconbridge, I guess, scene. But everybody stays on stage, but they're kind of two different stories. So it's sort of interesting because that's sort of John is a character here and John is king in Troublesome Rain, but the structure is somewhat similar. If you see what I mean.
Elizabeth.
Yeah, I had a really good point and it's gone now. I was so engrossed in what Lynn was saying that it just vanished. I'm sure it will turn up again.
Any other thoughts? Alan, I think you waved earlier.
Yeah, it was this question that has been explored in terms of, is everybody still there? Because in some ways it would almost make sense if Gloucester has been dragged off by the keeper. And therefore it's only a matter that it's going to be Keeper, Gloucester and Redcap now on stage rather than the whole bang shoot.
I think there's definitely a sense of people being in the action or maybe about but not quite off yet. I think you're right. There is possibility that some people have exited and maybe return or don't return. That it's that there's essentially missing potential directions there. I don't know that. I think it's just where the focus of the scene is at the moment, but it could be. Elizabeth, have you found your thought?
I found my thought. It was to do with the blocking. You were talking about the staging and the blocking, and about how if you get that right in the beginning, then you're kind of set. But if you get it wrong, it's a disaster. And I was thinking about who bows to who, and who bows to whom, and the fact that the way you set the stage, would certain characters have to walk past people of higher rank, and if they do, will they have to bow? And I thought that could become very funny very quickly.
Yeah, which king do you nod to first? That's a really good question. And you're right, that could be a really nice running gag of just going, do you do a slightly less of a nod to the younger king? And depending on your affiliation, Aliki then Lois.
I don't really understand what Gloucester did. Why is he being imprisoned?
Oh, for hitting Skink.
For hitting Skink, who the king hates, and wants dead.
The old king hates him. The young king is favoring him. And I think to do anything violent in the presence of a king anyway is supposed to be a crime.
Okay.
Whichever king it turns out to be in this case. Yeah.
Yeah, so the young king says, he's got Gloucester's got to pay, and the old king says, well, no, but we'll send him off, and and I'm sure quietly forget that we've sent him off. It's that sort of thing, of power games between the old and the young king, and for shouldn't have crowned him. It's not a good plan. Elizabeth again. Then we'll move on.
Just one more point about just what you were saying about the power dynamic between the old and the young king. I feel like the young king is very forthright with his opinions and very forthright with what he thinks the old king should be doing, basically biding his time until he's dead. And I was wondering, isn't that illegal to basically say that the king is going to die and that he should spend his time, paying penance for his sins?
Yeah, I mean, it's certainly not a great plan. I mean, you're right. I mean, it's the young king really isn't playing the game. He's saying, well, you've made me king, so I'll do all kingly things now. And it's just, it's not a good setup. Lois.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that Gloucester sitting on the ground at the beginning is a pretty unusual action. I mean, he's sort of denying the authority of the whole court, I think. It also puts him in a rather position, because it presumably means he can be downstage since he's not blocking anybody's view. So, and he makes all these comments on the action as it goes on.
Francis, were you waving, or just your
No, I wasn't. No.
Cool. Okay, so we've had the calling in of Redcap here, some nimble-footed fellow to do a message to Gloucester's sister, and so we have the entrance of Redcap.
No matter for the stammering. Is this he?
I'm Redcap, sir.
Run, Redcap, to Stepney.
I'll be at Stepney presently.
Nay, stay. Go to the Lady Fauconbridge, my sister.
Fauconbridge. Run, sir.
But take thy errand. Tell her I am prisoner, committed to the fleet.
I'm glad that my father, the porter, shall get a fee by you.
And still runs.
Stand still a while. Desire her to make means unto Prince Richard for my liberty. At thy return, make speed. I will reward thee.
I'm gone, sir.
And exit running.
Commend me to her, gentle Huntingdon. Tell her in these affairs I'll stand her friend. Her brother shall not long be prisoner. Say I will visit her immediately. Begone, sweet boy, to Marian Fauconbridge. Thou lookest like love. Persuade her to be loving.
And Robert?
So far as honour will, I will persuade. I'll lay love's battery to her modest ears. Second, my mild assault you may chance win. Fair parley at the least may hap us in.
And exit Robert.
Here, take your charge. Let no man speak with him, except ourself, our brethren, or Earl Leicester.
Not I, my lord. May not I speak with him?
Yes, Fauconbridge, thou shalt. Rachael?
And why? He is his wife's brother.
Oh, John, although I am true unto the state, and so is he.
What? Shall I have no servant of my own?
No, but the household servants of the fleet.
I thank you, kingsman king. Your father knows Gloucester may boldly give a base to slave blows.
Oh, but not here. It was not well done here.
Farewell, good Gloucester. You shall hear from us.
Even what your sons will suffer you to send. Is it not a misery to see you stand, that sometime was the monarch of this land, entreating traitors for a subject's freedom?
Let him not speak. Away with him to prison.
Here's like to be a well-stayed commonwealth, wherein proud Leicester and licentious John are pillars for the king to lean upon.
We'll hear your railing lecture in the fleet.
On thy displeasure, well, ye have me here. Oh, that I were within my fort of Bungay, whose walls are washed with the clear streams of Waveney. Then would not Gloucester pass a halfpenny for all these rebels and their poor king too. Last thou, King Henry? Thou know'st my words are true. God help thee, good old man. Adieu, adieu.
That castle shall be mine, wherein stands Fauconbridge.
Far from your reach, shore, under Feckhill Redge, 500 men, England hath few such white. Keep it for Gloucester's use, both day and night. But you may easily win it. Wanton's words quickly can master men. Tongues out brawls swords.
You're an idiot.
Ay, prithee, John, forbear.
What? Shall old Winter with his frosty jests cross flowery pleasures?
Aye, and nip you too. God, Mary Mother, I would tickle you, were there no more in place but I and you.
Ease these contentions. Forward to the tower. Release Queen Eleanor, and leave me there. Your prisoner I am, sure, if ye had power. There's nothing lets you but the commons fear. Keep your state, lords. We will by water go, making fresh Thames salt with tears of woe.
And we'll by land thorough the city ride, making the people tremble at our pride.
And everybody exits with trumpets in two separate directions, because yes, there's the happy side of the things and there's the less happy side of things. Yeah, John's really good at winning winning an argument, isn't he? It's like, you'll have someone using complicated, lengthy sentences that are, really joined up, and John just goes, "You're an idiot." It's just like, is that as good as you've got? Is that really? Wow, man. Wow, that showed his place. Yeah, so Redcap, something a bit awkward about that as a running gag there of the messenger with the stammer. I quite like the idea that he's just running on the spot. The still runs. I mean, it almost feel like they've just got an arm out, just holding onto his head to stop him from running any further. Just hold. Whoa. So there's a real awkwardness about that as a running gag, but I quite like the idea of this sort of overtly comic messenger type figure within this scene. So I think with modification, that's probably fine. But yeah, maybe not as writ. Lois.
Yeah, I mean, the joke, the running gag, if you like, is that he keeps trying to leave before he knows what the message is. I think that's happened in other plays as well. I seem to remember.
Yeah, I like that. The messenger that's not very good at doing messages is on that level. That's fine. And yeah, then we just get interesting question. Does Gloucester exit when he says adieu? It seems like he probably does. And who's that? This scene isn't just everybody exiting at the same time. There's some peeling off and moving in different directions. So there's a lot of dynamic work to be done to make this scene sort of fully hold together. Lynn.
Actually, that gag is sort of the converse of one I've seen a couple of times, where the person in command says, "Go to so and so." Okay, why haven't you left yet? You haven't told me what to do when I get there, right? Yeah, and my message would be run to the market and nothing else. Like what? So it's sort of the opposite of that gag.
Yeah.
Yeah, or constantly calling them back because they've got additional messages that they want to add, and the messenger doesn't know whether they should leave or not because it keeps happening. And oh no, I definitely can go this time. I definitely can go. Oh no, I'm coming back again. Right? Okay. So yeah, there's a lot of those sort of in out physical stuff that could work really nicely. Okay, that's the end of scene 2. I know we've got it labelled as the end of scene 4, but yeah, that's the end of scene 2. Any more on that before we go into scene 3? Okay, we have therefore for scene 3 or scene 5, depending on how you're labelling it, Skink enters alone.
Blackheath, quoth he, and I were king of all Kent, I would give it for a commodity of apron strings to be in my cottage again. Prince's warrants. Marry, Skink finds them as sure as an obligation sealed with batter. At Kingsbridge I durst not enter a boat. Through London the stones were fiery. I have had a good cool way through the fields, and in the highway to Ratcliffe stands a heater. Miles End covered with who goes there. 'Tis for me, sure. Oh, Kent, Kent, I would give my part of all Christendom to feel thee as I see thee. If I go forward, I am stayed. If I go backward, there's a rogue in a red cap. He's run from St. John's after me. I were best to stay here, lest if he come with hue and cry to stop me yonder. I would slip the collar for fear of the halter. But here comes my runner, and if he runs for me, his race dies. He is as sure as dead as if a parliament of devils had decreed it.
Yes, and retires slightly for the entrance of Redcap now for sublabeled scene 6, but we're still in scene 2.
The Deputy Church? Yonder. Oh, but I have forgot that lady, the plague on her. I must go back to the fleet to know it. The lady plague on Gloucester will go near me to stab me for forgetting my errand. He's such a mad lord. The lady
Help me devise. Upon my life, this fool is sent from Gloucester to his sister Marian.
I must needs go back. The lady
Godspeed, good fellow.
Godspeed you, sir.
Why runnest thou from me?
Mary of lost a lady's name, and I'm running back to seek it.
Oh, what lady? I prithee stay.
Why, the lady
Fauconbridge.
Aye, the same. Farewell. I thank you heartily.
If thou wouldst speak with her, she is in Kent. I serve her. What's thy business with my lady?
I should do an errand to her from my lord of Gloucester, but and she be in Kent. I'll send it by you.
Where is my lord?
Mary, prisoner in the fleet, and would have her speak to Prince Richard for his release.
Oh, I have much business. Hold, here's thy fare by water. My lady lies this night.
Where, I pray?
At Gravesend, at the Angel.
'Tis devilish cold going by water.
Why, here's my cloak and hat to keep thee warm. Thy cap and jerkin will serve me to ride in. By the way, thou hadst wind and tide. Take oars. My lady will reward thee royally.
God a mercy, for faith, and ever thou comest to the fleet, I'll give thee to turning of the key for nothing.
Heidi, tomorrow morning at Gravesend, I'll wash thy stammering throat with a mug of ale merrily.
God be with you till so soon. What call you the lady? Now I remember, the lady Fauconbridge. At what side?
At the Angel.
Angel, the lady Fauconbridge, Fauconbridge.
Farewell, and be hanged, good stammering ninny. I think I have set you at Redcap's heels a running. Would your pianot chattering humor could as safely set me from the searcher's walks. Yonder comes someone. Ahem. Skink to your tricks, this titty. The tongue, I believe, will fail me.
And we'll pause there before the entrance of the Constable and the Watch. Displaced stage direction there of Redcap and Skink exchanged clothing was clearly ages ago. But yes, first disguising has begun as people are swapping clothing. I am trying to remember off the top of my head the how far away the Fleet and Gravesend are from each other, but I'm assuming that they are not geographically close.
20
Lois.
miles.
The Fleet's in London. I mean, that's why Fleet Street,
But yeah, they're so he's clearly sending him the presumably in entirely the wrong direction.
Stepney certainly ain't in Kent.
Francis.
What's the Fleet? I was trying to sort of figure out what this was.
It's a prison.
Right. Okay.
It's just the question of the relevance, communicating to the audience, the misdirections that are going on here, and how clear that is just by the names, of a geography that people might or might not know, and things like that. So that's an important thing to make it clear. What the joke is at the moment. I say Skink is generally just causing mischief for the sake of it. He's very much leaning into that Vice character thing of I'm just going to do things for giggles, as it were. Rachael.
Yeah, I was gonna say for Fauconbridge that the Redcap has this stutter. If I guess our modern word for Firk, if that's made its way into the English language yet, then that's the joke they're playing on, that it's just this guy. And if he's hitting the Fauk on bridge, then it's this repeated just dropping of the F-bomb that I think, and the cursing that would get to people. Or I don't know if there's other points in this, that there's other words, other curse words that he might be hitting besides just, the Firk.
Yeah, yes, I think there's definitely that option is there. It's Lynn.
Oh yeah, there's a Johnson play from a little later than this, but not much, where two young men are talking in the first scene, and they're talking about a third friend of theirs who is absent, and one of the men describes him as a windfucker, which is a kind of bird of prey. So yes, that word was extant. It has a regular etymology. Foutre is related to it in French, and we know that word was used in French at the time. So yes, you hear it all the time, quite as much as you do now. But it almost certainly was current.
Yes, we've had it. We've had it explicitly utilized in plays going back from the mid Tudor. So we've Satire of the Three Estates. It's all over the place.
So Fauconbridge, and the L is and L's are fragile. There's the French word despite, which is malgré, and in English it's maugre. So the L's just do easily drop out. So I think that pun might absolutely be there.
And if it isn't, it probably should be. Alan.
Yeah, I was intrigued by Skink before Redcap came on stage, where he said he was being followed by Redcap, and I'm wondering whether the Redcap was the uniform of the Watch or whatever of the day. Because I don't think he's actually identified it as being the stammering messenger running after him. I think it's like he's in a constable's helmet.
Don't know. I genuinely don't know on that front. It feels like that's probably too modern, but I don't know. But there. Okay, we are mid mischief. Some disguising has occurred, so of course whatever Skink now does, he can presumably blame on somebody else. So let's see what additional mischief might come up. Labelled as scene 7, it's still scene 3. Enter Constable and watch.
Come, make up to this fellow. Let the other go. He seems a gentleman.
Redcap has already exited and addressed as Skink. I don't know why that's there. That's obviously misplaced.
No, it's there because he says let the other go. That's
let the other go. Ah, right. So yeah, sorry. Okay, good, lovely. It's not misplaced. Anyway, exit Redcap dressed as Skink.
What are you, sir?
Would I had kept my own suit if the countenance carry it away?
Stand, sirrah. What are you?
The porter's son of Fleet, going to Stepney about a business to the lady for Fauconbridge.
Well, bring him thither, some 2 or 3 of ye, honest neighbours, and so back to the Fleet. We'll show ourselves diligent above other officers.
What? Let me run. I am Redcap.
Well, sure ye shall now run no faster than I lead you. Hear you, neighbour Sims. I leave my staff with ye. Be vigilant, I pray you. Search the suspicious houses at the town's end. This Skink's a trouncer. Come, will you be gone, sir?
Yes, sir. The devil go with you and them. Well, they have hope, mad heart, could come your way.
And exit. So, in disguise and imitating also Redcap's mode of speech, Skink gets away scot-free from his troubles. Yeah, it was a cunning disguise to get him out of an immediate fix. Alan?
Yeah, I think the first half of Skink's last line was probably an aside.
Mm.
Oh.
Yes, sir, and the devil go with you and them. Because he's speaking in unimitative manner.
Right. And the devil go with you. So yeah.
I think the whole thing might be an aside actually, because he may be just taking the mickey of the accent in that last line. I mean, otherwise,
Possibly.
What does it mean? Yeah, I think he's talking to himself. Yet have hope. You're getting out of this. Yeah, I'm not sure. Does he get away? Actually, I mean, I find this a bit puzzling because the constable seems to think that some of them are going to bring him to Stepney, which he didn't really want.
I think that is the constable talking to the rest of the watch there, because there's an intimation that there are other people on stage, so it might be that they're just turning away from Skink.
Yeah.
I could be wrong on that point. I again, there's a question of data. Maybe the text will give us more clues on that later on. So yes, they let the gentleman go, which, in a sense, Skink could have got away scot-free at the beginning anyway, but just being the gentleman, it's so maybe it's ironic. Maybe he hasn't sort of got. Maybe he just got himself into a different kind of trouble. Okay, we don't have to come up with answers on that yet, but we will move on as we now go to scene 4, or scene 8 in our version. Enter Robin Hood and Block.
Sweet nobility and reversion, Block, by the commission of his head, conjures you and withal binds you, by all the tricks that pages pass in time of parliament, as swearing to the pantable, crowning with custards, paper whiffs to the sleepers' noses, cutting of tags, stealing of torches, cum multis alice tell. Block, what block you have cast in the way of my lady's content.
Block, by the antiquity of your ancestry, I've given your lady not so much as the least cause of dislike. If she be displeased at any news I bring, it's more than I must blab.
Zoons, these pages be so proud, they care not for an old serving man. You are a ward and so an earl, and no more. You disquiet our house, that's the most. And I may be even with thee, that's the least.
Enter the Lady Fauconbridge.
What block, I say? What do you there?
Making the young lord merry, madam.
Go attend the gate. See if you can let in more grief thereat.
Zoons, and grief come in there. And I see him once. I'll conjure his gabardine.
Will you be gone, sir?
These women. And she be not in love either with Prince Richard or this lad. Let Block's head be made a chopping block.
Oh, and exit block.
Fair madam, what reply you to my suit? The prince expects smiles, welcomes, loving looks.
The prince, if he give heed to Marion's suit, must hear heart sighs, see sorrow in my eyes, and find cold welcome to calamities.
And why, for God's sake?
Even for Gloucester's sake.
Why, by mine honour and Prince Richard's oath, your brother Gloucester shall have liberty, upon condition you release a prisoner that you have long held in captivity.
I have no prisoner.
Yes, a world of eyes, your beauty and a willing bondage ties.
No, too, you are disposed to jest, my lord.
In earnest, I must be an earnest suitor for you, for love. Yet you must be my tutor.
Are you in love?
I dearly love Prince Richard.
Then do you love the loveliest man alive, the princeliest person of King Henry's sons?
I like this well.
He is virtuous in his mind, his body fair, his deeds are just, his speeches debonair.
Better and better still.
Indeed, he is what nobody can deny, all lovely, beauty all majesty.
I'll tell his excellent what you report. No doubt he will be very thankful for it.
Nay, hear you, young lord, for God's pity, stay.
What? Have you more in Richard's praise to say?
I have said too much if you misconstrue me. Duty bids praise him, not unchastity.
Unchastity? Holy heavens forfend it, that he or I or you should once intend it.
Enter Block and Richard.
There, sir. Close at it. I leave you, sir. The more room, the less company.
Drink that. Farewell.
And gives him money.
If that Sir Richard comes, this ties, this binds. Oh, gold, thy power converteth servants' minds.
Exit Block.
How now, fair madam? Who hath angered you?
Grief at my brother's durance angers me.
I had thought my ward, young Huntingdon, had vexed you.
Who, he? Alas, good gentleman, he wronged me not. No matter. For all this, I'll tell your tale.
There's a noise within. Enter Skink, Block, and Constable.
Sir, there comes no more of you in with him than the constable. Zoons, here's a bread roll of bills at the gate indeed. Back, ye base.
Now, Sarah, what's the matter?
Marry, here's a stammerer taken clipping the king's English, and the constable and his watch hath brought him to you to be examined.
No, madam, we are commanded by the king to watch, and meeting this fellow at Mile End, he tells us he is the porter's son of the fleet, and that the Earl of Gloucester sent him to you.
Ooh, do we have a skink? We appear to have lost our skink. Who's free to step in to be skinkish? Aliki for the moment. Stepping skink, as it were.
A plague upon you for a damned rogue. Is that right? No, it's too late. Sorry. Where am I?
I forsooth.
I forsooth.
Bottom of the page.
He desired you to speak to the prince for him.
Oh, I conceive thee. Bid him blithely fare. Bear him this ring in token of my care.
If I be rid of this evil angel that haunts me, many rings, much fleet, will Skink come unto.
Madam, if you know this fellow, we'll discharge him.
Madam, an you be wise, trust your honest neighbours here. Let them bring this to the fleet and see your ring delivered.
A plague upon you for a damned rogue. The porter of the fleet will surely know me.
Good neighbours, bring this honest fellow thither. There's for his pains a crown, if he say true. And for your labour, there's as much for you.
Why, my madam, I am Reverend Redcap, the porter's son.
Thou hast no wrong in this. Farewell, good fellow.
Best speaking to Prince Richard. No, I'll try and face out Redcap, if the slave were by.
Make them drink, Block.
Come to the buttery bar. Stiddy, stiddy, stammerer. Come, honest Constable A. The watch of our town will drink. Try little, i' faith.
And exuent Block and Constable, but there's still stuff going on in that scene. So this scene sort of, again, this fading in and fading out that's going on in scenes. You know, are people explicitly exiting, or are they just sort of moving in different areas of the stage? Where's Robert? We know Lady Fauconbridge is still sort of about, but again, yeah, it's this sort of interesting sort of fading in. Robert wooing for Richard. Ladies, you know, saying, well, he's nice, but you know, let's not go too far. Yes. Anyone called Marion, of course, in relation to a Robert of Hoodness, may be detecting some hints of something to come. Who knows? I don't know. The scene isn't pushing us too far in that direction yet, but maybe just a little work there. Following on Rachel's thought earlier about we have got a moment where that again. Lots of issues with the whole stammering thing. But yeah, I see what the joke is going for there. Yeah, any other thoughts before we sort of, they've got a little bit more of the scene to go, and as we go forward? Any additional thoughts before we sort of complete what we're doing for this session? Rachel.
I was going to ask, Block's final thing that he says, we'll drink, try lil, if faith. Does try lil, is that a word, or is he saying something like trill and he's mixing it up in mockery or something like that?
I read it as trillil, but yeah, I don't know. Alan.
I would have thought effectively trala.
Yeah,
you know,
trillil.
Down the bar.
Yeah. Yeah, could go with a gesture, couldn't it? Yeah, that I haven't got a handle on Block. In fact, that's a lot of what we might call Block's banter. I have just got a sort of question marks next to, just going, I'm not really sure what he's actually saying half the time. It's a bit too dense, some of that. But yeah. Okay, let's dig a little deeper into this ongoing scene 4 in our running mini scene count. We're up to scene 10. So Block and the Constable have exited. Robert and Richard and Lady Fauconbridge are still all on stage. As they go out, enters Sir Richard Fauconbridge, stealing forward. Prince Richard and Lady talking.
Lupus in fabula, my noble lord. See the old fox, Sir Richard Fauconbridge.
We'll fit him well enough. Second us, Robin.
I'll fit you well enough for all your hope.
And Fauconbridge beckons to Block.
Leave quaffing, Sirrah. Listen to their talk.
Oh, while you live, beware. 2 are sooner seen than 1. Besides, bear brain, master. If Block should be now spied, my madam would not trust this sconce neither in time nor tide.
Well, leave me. Now it buds. See, they kiss.
Adieu. Good old sinner. You may recover it with a salad of parsley and the herb patience. If not, sir, you know the worst. It's but even this.
Madam, what you desire I not deny, but promise Gloucester life and liberty. I beg but love.
When doth she give her alms?
Fair honourable prince.
Nay then, they speed.
My soul hath your deserts in good esteem.
Witness these goodly tines that grace my head.
But were you the sole monarch of the earth, your power were insufficient to invade my never-yielding heart. of chastity.
Sayest thou so, Mull? I promise thee for this, I'll owe thy cherry lips an old man's kiss. Look how my cockerel droops. 'Tis no matter, I like it best when women will not flatter.
Nay, but sweet lady.
Nay, but gracious lord, do not so much forget your princely worth as to tempt virtue to unchastity.
O noble youth!
Let not the lady's dead grief for her brother give life to shameless and detested sin.
Sweet child,
Consider that she is of high descent,
most virtuous earl.
wife to the noblest knight that ever breathed.
Now, blessing on thee, blessed Huntington.
Would you then first stain your princely stock, wrong beauty, virtue, honour, chastity, and blemish Fauconbridge's untainted arms?
By adding horns unto our falcon's head? Well thought on, noble youth, 'twas well put in.
Besides, my gracious lord,
Tickle him, Mal, plague him on that side for his hot desire.
however secretly great princes sin,
Oh, now the spring, she'll do it secretly.
the king of all hearts will have all sins known.
Ah, then she yields not.
Lady, here's my hand. I did but try your honourable faith.
He did but try her. Would she have been tried? It had gone hard on this and on this side.
And since I see your virtue so confirmed, as vice can have no entrance in your heart, I vow, in sight of heaven, never again to move like question, but for love.
My heart is eased. Hold, Block, take up my cloak.
And your cap too, sir.
Sir Richard Fauconbridge comes forward.
Sir Richard.
What, sweet prince, welcome in faith. I see youth quickly gets the start of age, but welcome, welcome, and young Huntington, sweet Robin Hood, honour's best flowering bloom, welcome to Fauconbridge with all my heart. How cheers my love? How fares my Marion, huh? Be merry, Chuck, and Prince Richard, welcome. Let it go, Mal. I know thy grievances. Away, away, tut, let it pass, sweet girl. We needs must have his help about the earls.
Let it not be delayed, dear Fauconbridge.
Sir Richard, first make suit unto my father. I'll follow you to court and second you.
Follow to court, huh? Then I smell a rat. It's probable he'll have a bout again. Long siege makes entrance to the strongest fort. It must not be. I must not leave him here. Prince Richard, if you will love my brother's good, let's ride back to the court. I'll wait on you.
He's jealous, but I must observe the time. We'll ride on to the court. I'll leave my boy till we return. Are you agreed to this?
Oh, aye. He is an honourable youth, virtuous and modest, Huntington's right heir. His father Gilbert was the smoothest-faced lord that e'er bare arms in England or in France.
Solicit Robin. Lady, give good ear, and of your brother's freedom never fear.
Marion, farewell. Where's Block? Open the gate. Come, Prince. God send us to prove fortunate.
Exeunt Fauconbridge and Richard.
Why do you stay, sir?
Madam, as a leisure to solicit for your absent love.
Walk in the garden. I will follow you. Faith, you are a noble wag.
Honourable wag and waggish earl. Even what you will, sweet lady, I must bear, hoping that patience profit will ensue, that you will bear the prince as I bear you.
Well said, well said. I'll have these toys amended. Go, will you walk into the garden, sir?
But will you promise me to bring no maids to set upon my little manship there? You threatened whipping, and I'm in fear.
Upon my word, I'll bring none but myself.
You see, I am weaponed. Do not, I beseech thee, I'll stab them. Come there 20 ere they breach me.
And exit Robert.
This youth and Richard think me easily won, but Marian rather will embrace the bony carcass of dismaying death than prove unchaste to noble Fauconbridge. Richard, King Henry's son, is light, wanton, and loves not humble modesty, which makes me much contrary to my thoughts flatter his humor for my brother's safety. But I protest I'll dwell among the dead ere I pollute my sacred nuptial bed.
And exit lady. And ends scene 4. So a series of quite complicated exchanges, because we've got a scene being viewed by Fauconbridge, who has been observed by the people he is observing. So all of the exchange with Lady and Fauconbridge and Robert is sort of fake and stage managed, at least from their point of view, apart from Lady, who is playing a pretty straight bat with everything. She's quite unambiguous of just at the end there, Marian rather will embrace the bony carcass of dismaying death, though has to play a slight tightrope here of flattery because of the political situation that they're all in. But yeah, no doubt as to where they're going there. But just those little lingering moments with Robert and Lady there, I just see where that might go. I don't know. Rachael.
The exchange between her and Robert, I mean, the little manship thing seems like, very overt as to what that might mean. But the part where he says, you see, I am weaponed, do not I beseech thee, I'll stab them, come there 20 ere they breach me. What does that mean? Like, because that sounds creepy, like, come alone, and if you bring anybody, I'll kill them.
Lois?
Well, he seems to be, he really is playing on this weird transitional state between being a little boy and being a man. These women could breach him, which could mean whip him. He mentions whipping at one point. That's what you do to little boys. And on the other hand, the reference to the weapon and stabbing is obviously sexual. And I think he's enjoying this playing with words. Whether he quite knows what he's saying, I'm not sure. And I don't know what she's meant to be thinking of all that.
Yeah, that is I think Aliki said asked in the chat. How old is Robert throughout the progression of the play? He's being presented as quite young, and Lois was talking about that sort of transitional age. By the end of the play, how old would he be? Because possibly ages. What kind of acting range do you need the actor to have for that? Depending on where the character goes, without going too far ahead, of course, for those who know where we're going. Lois.
Yeah, and actually, the role that he's playing with Richard is really kind of awful. Acting as a sort of pander, really. For a kid of that age to be trying to seduce, get a woman to be seduced by his master. It suggests the whole kind of playful atmosphere. It's not quite clear. He sometimes talks as if he thinks this whole thing is honorable, and at other times he knows perfectly well it isn't.
Yeah, well, but again, during this scene, it's the question of how much of this is, if not a prepared script, but an improvised script, of just going, oh, we'll pretend to woo her, but we know her husband is, so Robert can go off on these things. But if he knows that, then, if he's been given instructions, that maybe he's just very, very fluid in that. So again, that's a sort of production question of what there may be some ambiguity as to what that character is up to, or what he knows he's up to, as it were. So many options, so many questions. Rachael, you have a confused look in your eye. Don't worry, it gets more confusing. Don't worry, it's still quite straightforward at the moment.
No, I was just gonna say, if maybe Richard's using his Prince Richard's using his using Robin Hood's youth as a way of going to that, you know what I mean? Because he's so young that nobody's gonna like maybe he's of the right age, that he's still childish enough that to use him as a pander would not draw the attention of her husband. He doesn't, because he's not, he doesn't have a beard, he's not a man or anything like that yet, or of that age where he can't do it face to face, and maybe that's why he says all the ladies around or something, that he could wind up being around all those ladies and nobody would have rumors about him or them.
Well, definitely that seems to be how Fauconbridge takes it, because when Fauconbridge is watching Robert doing his dialogue, it's all sweet child, oh noble youth, and all that. So in that sense, as a cover, it clearly works on that level. Fauconbridge is never going to be persuaded that Richard isn't a bit of a lech, but he seems completely taken in with whatever Robert is doing. So that seems to work really well. Lois.
Yeah, of course, that's because Robert's made a point of coming out with all these remarks about how noble Fauconbridge is in that staged dialogue. So naturally, Fauconbridge is saying, oh, what a nice young man. Yeah.
Yes, he's most virtuous Earl. Oh, yes, he likes. He really does like being told these lovely things about him. Yeah. Fauconbridge, has these moments because it's this question of watching where his wife is going, and he does sort of flip a bit as well from going no, everything's fine. Oh, hang on, we're sure. Oh, not sure. Francis.
Yeah, something that became clear to me in that scene is that there's quite an age gap between Fauconbridge and Lady Fauconbridge. So, Lady Fauconbridge is a lot younger. So he's obviously very concerned that she's prey to younger men, younger suitors.
Rachael.
Just because this is the way it's broken up in the verse, that the bony carcass of dismaying death is put on its own line, that it makes me wonder if that's also her point of view as to how she views Fauconbridge, but that for, her own honor and, the sacredness of marriage, she would rather, that, maybe that's not the interpretation, but maybe, she doesn't have whatever it's, completely a political marriage, but she would still rather that than the humiliation or the, being the, or what do you call it, notorious woman or something like that, infamous.
Oh, I think that Lady Fauconbridge is very aware of who she is and her position. I mean, there's as much about that reputational side of things as actual affection for her husband. I don't know how affectionate actually her dialogue was. I think it was moderately so. I don't think it was wholly political in that sense. But yes, it could have very well easily have been a straightforward match made for dynastic reasons on that level, depending on how real any of these people are. Now, we were going to go a little further on, but actually I think this is a good place to stop, actually, because it is actually the genuine end of a scene. We've got a couple of short scenes we were going to do, but actually we'll tag them onto the beginning of the next session because they are all part of one sequence. So that makes a lot of sense. We've only done 4 scenes, but we've packed a lot into those scenes. There's a lot of stuff going on. Big scenes with reasonably large cast, lots of complicated dynamics, but even slightly simpler scenes where you've got in theory slightly simpler scenes with the clowning characters doing stuff gets interspersed with other characters doing things as well at the same time, so there's a lot of overlap. There's a sense of these scenes are all flowing into each other, actually, that I'm finding really interesting. That I can understand why there are varying different ways to how this play is broken up into scenes. because actually, yeah, what is the best way of breaking this thing up? Because it's odd. So yeah, we're about a quarter of the way through. So obviously, there's a lot of text to go. But final thoughts: how are we finding the show so far? Potentials, options, thoughts, especially, of course, fitting it in to a degree to questions of history plays. You know, how much of a history play is this? In a sense, it's more of a history play than I was expecting. This whole family dynamic stuff is really I'm really enjoying that. And then there's that hints of the origin story for Robin Hood, which is sort of just pootling along at the moment, but not making itself too known. So final thoughts around the room. Who wants to leap in first? Anyone want to volunteer before I start picking on people? I'll go to Elizabeth first. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm really enjoying this play. I think the characters are really well drawn, and I think that the messiness of the beginning of the play doesn't lose you. It kind of keeps you engaged. Whether it will all be unravelled and it will all be neatly tied up again at the end remains to be seen, but I am enjoying the play very much.
Yes, and I think it's deliberate messiness. I mean, it's not that it's just it doesn't make sense. I'm sure there are some flanging edges around it, but that big scene 2, is dynamically messy in a good way. And it gives you options in performance. And it's a relatively long text. Some cutting is probable for any production. But that said, actually, what we've read today has moved really quite quickly. So actually, sometimes texts on paper are quite long, but actually in practice move like the clappers. So this one feels fleet of foot in that sense. Briony, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm enjoying it overall. I've been quite quiet today because I've just been kind of getting a feel for it, really. Yeah, it is. I like that it's history, but it's so much more blunt and to the point than a lot of histories, because sometimes they lose me when they're too waffly and everybody's got like 15 layers of subtext in what they're saying because you can't say that in front of that person, and it didn't have that. It was like to the point, and that kept me engaged. And then some really obvious sex jokes, which again, that was engaged. Yeah, I'm excited to see where it's going to
go. Francis, any final thoughts?
It took me a while to get my bearings with this play because, as everybody has said, it's very complicated at the beginning, and I sort of found I had to step back instead of trying to figure out all the details of what was going on and who was related to who and who was married to who and who was allied with who. I just had to kind of step back and say, okay, the family's just arguing. But I agree with Elizabeth. The complexity at the beginning didn't put me off. It sort of kept me engaged. I'm still not quite sure how I feel about the play, but I'm intrigued to see where it goes.
Yeah, I mean, there is that sort of big problem with Redcap. Just retooling Redcap to just not be horribly ableist and in a really awful way. I mean, it's I think there are alternative jokes to who Redcap is that will work, and that's something to play with, because otherwise I am genuinely really, there aren't that many objections. I'm still not quite sure what the joke with Block is yet. I as a sort of a family retainer in a household, but not quite sure really what they're doing with that character yet. The dialogue didn't leap out at me, but I don't have a problem with retooling some of the comedy stuff sometimes, because sometimes comedy just doesn't work after time. Sometimes it's very much down to what an actor does with it, or what the vocabulary and the syntax of the time is up to, and sometimes comedy doesn't travel well. Alan, any final thoughts?
Not an awful lot to add, really. I mean, it's moving at a good pace. As you say, the elephant in the room is the Redcap character and what one could do to replace that, and still keep some sort of vocal identifier to give any point to Skink's impersonation, which I think possibly continues
Mm.
later. Always an issue with these disguising plays of getting an identifiable trait which can be part of the impersonation.
Mm. Yes, and you're right. It is a running thing. Certainly, at least in the scenes that we've done, that a different identifiers. That so it's clearly automatically, in silhouette as well. I mean, the physical stuff is there. There's a nice idea of just this constantly running off before ready is quite nice. Just really enthusiastic. And just simply, it's just shame to lose some swearing jokes, but sometimes you have to lose something. Lynn, any final thoughts?
The complexity has been a little difficult for me. But remember, Cheynne and I start at 6 a.m. here, in our time zone, so my brain's not really entirely awake. So that was a little bit hard, but I think when you have it on stage and you can use blocking and costuming and the character's physical appearance and ages and stuff, a lot of what I'm finding hard to follow would be cleared up if I could see it. And I do like some of the ambiguity. I mean, even though, as I think Francis was saying, people just like say what they think, particularly young Henry, just like, so we paid you to poison my dad's girlfriend, and I'm okay with that. But still, you don't necessarily see what's going to happen. Is Eleanor going to get out of prison or not? The queen, whose actual name I don't know if we ever mentioned. Are the sons going to lobby successfully to get her released? And if they do, are they going to try to depose their father? We don't know. And we don't even really know, I don't think, if Lady Fauconbridge is going to end up losing her battle and breaking her promise to herself. We know now because she says in soliloquy, I don't want to do this. I'd rather die. But as her husband says in a few lines before that, the strongest town besieged long enough will fall. So I don't think we know the answer to that yet. And exactly who Robin is, we haven't quite. Is he a good guy, a bad guy? Is he just opportunistic? So all those unanswered questions, I think, are really intriguing. I think dramaturgically that's actually quite effective.
Mm. Just a general question for the room as well. Just is the title "Look About You," and what it's doing there, because in a sense that's what scene 2 is perhaps all about. Is everyone's looking over their shoulder at what other people are doing, when you're in a maybe. I mean, there might be other. The text may give us other things, but it's an intriguing title in that sense of, and it'll be interesting to see whether that title yields more for us. Lois, avoiding spoilers as ever. Any final thoughts?
Yeah. Okay, well, as you know, I'm very fond of this play. I have seen it, enough said, but I mean, every time I've seen it, people have been, really amazed how effective it is. The Redcap thing, the trouble with it is it fits rather nicely into the kind of broad brush technique of characterization here, because the joke is that anybody who starts stammering immediately is taken for Redcap, however, whether he looks like him or not. I mean, it's about stereotyping. And I mean, from the point of view of anybody with a disability, it really is about how the disability becomes so huge that it completely obliterates everything else. But I suppose we don't really want to do this as a great play about disability. The rest of it, it's difficult to say anything without spoilers, really. I mean, it just gets more and more complicated. I think it's a really brilliant bit of comic construction, actually.
So something to look forward to going forward. Back to Alan.
Yeah, I just had a thought. You could actually do Redcap as "God blimey, Gov." Talk broad Cockney.
Yes, well, I think there's been some mention in the chat about potential accent work and thing that might link into that. I mean, I think there's a lot of discussion that could come out of that. I'll go to Aliki, then Briony.
I think the obvious answer for what you do with Redcap is he's always running, so he's always out of breath. So he has to, Lady which is a different joke, but works really nicely.
Briony.
Yeah, I like what Aliki's just suggested there. For me, it's particularly in the scene with Redcap and Skink together. It was really giving me Granville Arkwright kind of vibes, and I don't know whether, like, because now, like, the more I think about it, it's not that that hasn't aged that badly, considering, you know, the whole stammering joke in that. And I don't know whether it's just the actors who played the parts did it in such a way that wasn't so offensive. I don't know, but it just that made me forgive it a lot more once I'd seen that connection in my head.
And it's really, yeah. I don't quite know where to place it yet in terms of, you know, what the play is also saying at that point as well. You know, well, is the joke on Redcap all the time, or is there actually room for human dignity? I don't know in a comedy whether there ever is. Aliki, any final thoughts?
Yeah, several other people have said I haven't quite sunk into it yet. I'm not quite sure what it's doing and how, but I'm interested. I'm not put off by that. I can see that it would reward further exploration, and I'd like to do that.
And Rachael, any final thoughts?
Yeah, about Block's part, just because I got to read him today. I think he's that cunning servant that, you know, he knows what's going on around. And also I think that one scene where he excuses himself because he doesn't want to, you know, be the older husband who's controlling of the younger wife and aiding his, you know, his employer in that, you know, watching his wife as she walks through the garden with every man or every young boy or something like that. I think the beginning was a little confusing, but I did like that confusingness, because it does lead into the energy of that huge argument that they're all having, that huge family dispute and infighting. And I am really enjoying this so far, that the verse is really nice, and it's really conversational, and really easy to understand, and really feels like conversations.
So, on the whole, going down reasonably well. We're having lots of fun. There's several more sessions to go as we unpack the rest of the text in future sessions. Unless I see anyone with any final thoughts they want to throw in, I think I've gone round the room. All that remains is thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, and goodbye. Follow that skink.